skeptical. I get it. All you carbophobes out there don't think that you could take over the world using just bread. If you doubt the power of this puffy hot dog holder, that only means one thing, that I'm gonna have to spend the next 18 minutes or so convincing you in the most unhinged way possible that bread is the most powerful substance on the planet. To show you this, I'm gonna have to tell you the entire history of the world in bread. By the time we're done, you'll not only have a new favorite food, but you'll know how to use it to conquer the world. Grab a slice for the road, everyone, because this one is gonna be a trip. Now, if we're talking about bread conquering the world, we're gonna need to get a little handle on the world itself. So for all of you who weren't finalists in the geography bee in high school, congratulations on doing literally anything else. We're just gonna catch you up here. This is the world, and this right here, that's me, showing you how to conquer the whole thing with carbs. Your next step will be to forget everything that you learned in 12 years of history class or whatever. The only thing that you really need to understand about history is bread. Bread, like all of us, starts from humble beginnings here in Mesopotamia, where it's 30,000 years ago and bread isn't bread yet. It's instead just some random seeds of grain. Here we are, little ancient people freshly emerging from the primordial ooze, wandering around killing things with sticks and trying to figure out which leaves we can eat. Someone has the weird idea to eat some wheat seeds grown in the wild. They smash them up a little, mix them with some water, and drop them into the fire until they're crispy. Voila! Bread. It's not much to look at. It is a weird, pulpy little cracker, but we love it. Because, let me tell you, it is better than eating bugs and leaves. The record of ruins from this time shows that bread is first found in ceremonial and sacred places, meaning that we thought it was pretty cool. A special awesome little cookie of carbs, and we love these ugly little wheat slabs so much that we're like, hey, what if we stopped wandering around and just waited for more of these wheat seeds to grow? And so that's exactly what we did. When you learn history, I think people just stopped being nomadic and then started to develop agriculture. But really, it was the other way around. We were like, hey, bit of bread addiction happening here. This is the best thing since sliced itself, so we're just gonna sit here until more of it grows. And thus civilization was born because people wanted to eat more toast. From there, the popularity of bread, like any great celebrity, goes from fact to legend. For ancient Mesopotamian civilizations, wheat becomes deeply entwined with mythology. The Sumerians developed Nisaba, the goddess of grain and writing. She's a very big deal. Over time, bread hits the road, carried by the people who were still wandering nomads, all the way over to ancient Egypt, where there are some cool new kids in town calling themselves the pharaohs. Turns out the Egyptians have a little annual event that's pretty helpful for growing wheat. They all live next to this enormous river, the Nile, which was full of crocodiles and baby Moseses, and was also very good at doing one thing every year, having a flood. The yearly flooding of the Nile, which is part of the natural water cycle of the region, ends up leaving behind a massive area full of well-watered crops with no hauling of water necessary. No digging fancy irrigation lines that no one's invented yet to grow these crops, at least until bread comes around. Turns out, people are gonna do a lot of things to get themselves more bread, so they invent elaborate irrigation channels, canals, dams that'll be used all over the world for thousands of years, all inspired by everyone's love of growing more bread. The Egyptians are also conducting wild scientific experiments to find more ways to eat bread, kind of like the Alton Browns of the desert, experimenting with grinding up the wheat and actually mixing it with other stuff. Up to this point, most people were just kind of toasting up wheat seeds and packing them together with some water, then scalding the whole thing in a fire to make a flat, crackery little slab. But the Egyptians, they get wild with it. They make a paste out of ground up wheat and water, which they then leave out in the sun, inventing the entire process of yeast fermentation. Now, other civilizations have done fermentation before. I mean, we've invented beer at this point. We're not monsters. But this is like a whole new frontier for bread. Like the latest TikTok craze, everyone wanted to get their hands on this bread that actually rises for exactly the same reasons that we follow trends today. The clout. The upper classes can now lord it over the little peons still eating flatbread made out of yucky barley instead of cool, puffy wheat. Bread is such an essential part of life that it becomes completely linked with the Egyptian gods, and all religious practices involve offerings of bread. The god Osiris, who is not only the Egyptian god of death and rebirth, but also agriculture, has illustrations showing wheat literally growing out of his body to symbolize resurrection. During festivals in ancient Egypt, priests